What's up? This is your boy Big Doula here at the Lorekings, discussing today how to become an indie game designer, episode 4. So in the previous weeks, we've really talked about how to structure the venture moving forward. How do you structure starting this project? And this is another step in that structuring phase. I know you're like, yo, Big Doula, I'm here to try to learn how to play indie game, build indie games, and you haven't even talked about programming, art, anything else like that. Trust me, guys, if you jump into it, you will fail. If you jump into it without planning, without getting expectations, without getting roles, without the setup phase, you will suffer. There'll be misunderstandings and people will fail. So what I'm saying is that the planning part is as important, if not the most important part of the indie game design. Now, next week I'll talk about starting the design itself, the actual play of the game. I really wanted to discuss how you map out production. So now that you have expectations set, now that you have your metrics set, you can start now preparing to what that's going to look like as far as production. Now that everyone understands that you're putting in this many hours a week and you're putting in this much of your own resources per week or per month, or however your group decided the best metric would fall, now it's time to start moving forward. Now it's time to start building out the roadmap. So while your programmers are building the functional parts of the engine that you need, or rewriting code, if you buying an engine, making it work for you, the artists are now preparing the first assets that they can then put in there. For all the people that don't do this step, this is where you start to falter, because you have assets built from the art team that may not match up with what's needed with the programming team, and vice versa. And this is when you start having one team or one person too far ahead of the rest of the team, and then everyone gets conjoined, and then it's finger pointing, and then that's how it all starts to go downhill from there. So just map out production. What does the programmers need from the artist in the beginning? Artists, what do you need from the programmers? Are you going to start building out the first character animations to make sure that it's working correctly, and then once you know that that's working correctly, expanding on the other characters? How does the programming team feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable building out certain aspects of the engine first rather than other aspects of the engine? This is the part where everyone kind of gets there and kind of sits down and really starts ironing out what producing this game is going to look like. Now, I know you're about to say, well, we don't even know what we're building yet. We don't know, what the character's name is, what it is. I mean, as long as you got to the part where you're like, I'm going to make a 2D side scroller. It's going to have, we're going to try and make 6 to 8 levels, and this is what it's going to look like. You don't really need to have the character ironed out. You really don't need to have the enemies ironed out. The first part of production's all going to look the same. And I feel like that is a more important part, is what are we capable of? What can we do for the game? Because you don't want to come up with all these great ideas like, oh, my character can fly and do all this other stuff. And then once you start sitting down to make the game, your production team can't make that, right? So then now, if everyone's hopes, everyone's dreams up, and a production team can't make it. So find out what everyone's capability is. Then after you find out what capability, what can you actually build? Then you go back and start, okay, how can we make this fun? How do we make this a game? How do we make this a good experience? Because now you know what your limitations are. You don't want to, it's like driving a car, right? You don't want to say you can go 250 miles per hour or something, and your car can only go 150, right? So you want to make sure that your expectations are set at the level of the team, and then build out what that production roadmap would look like. What can we produce? What can't we produce? What do we feel comfortable with? Maybe if we're done a little early, where are we stretching? Where are we going to try and test ourselves? But everyone should know that. Everyone should know that going in, what the limitations are, what are the expectations, and what's the roadmap now going to look like. Do you start in a month? Do you let everyone get all their stuff in order before you start production? Or do you start tomorrow? Do you start on Wednesday? Do you have one day when you guys all get together? These are all the things that need to be ironed out in the beginning. I know it's not fun, it's not the part that you really want, but it's like practice, right? It's like you practice all week and then the game comes on the weekend, and that is fun because you know what you're doing, you know what's happening, you know everything that's happening. I feel like that's what this gets you prepared to then move forward. And so you're not thinking about this stuff. You're not thinking about scheduling. You're not thinking about any of these other things. Once the project starts, you can just go and you can just have fun. And you can just bang stuff out and you can create an awesome fucking game, right? So that's where we're at now. That's where we're at now. This is the last of the planning phases, but trust me, you need to do this or your team is gonna fall apart. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see people starting and stopping. I want to see people going in, making it happen, and building these games and just keep on making this video game industry, making video game world as good as possible. All right, this is your boy Big Doula here, signing off from the Lorekings. Watch, like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Peace. Hey, what's up? This is your boy Big Doula here at the Lorekings on How to Become a Game Designer series, episode 3. Now, on this episode, we're going to talk about expectations. Last episode and the episode before that is about structure. How do you get up and going? What's your motivation? How are you approaching this whole thing? Now we need